I'm Ryan Yamamoto. This is The Minute. In the Middle East, a ceasefire deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas. Sources tell CBS News it would stop fighting in Gaza for more than 40 days, release dozens of hostages and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Fire danger remains high today in Southern California due to strong winds and dry conditions. Winds could reach up to 70 miles per hour. 25 people have been killed and more than 12,000 homes have been destroyed since the fires broke out last week. More than 82,000 people remain under evacuation orders. And in San Francisco, Mayor Daniel Lurie will meet with city supervisors and public safety leaders today to discuss the city's efforts to combat the fentanyl crisis. That meeting follows Lurie's introduction of the fentanyl state of emergency ordinance aimed at unlocking resources to tackle the issue. The Bay Area's only primetime newscast, 8 and 9 p.m. on Pix Plus, 44 Cable 12.
You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
All throughout California, we've been experiencing strong offshore winds at times throughout this week, of course, impacting Southern California with those strong Santa Ana winds, where they're still under red flag warnings throughout this afternoon. Now, back here locally, we've also been experiencing these offshore winds, just significantly lighter. I mean, at max today, we're getting anywhere up to around 15-mile-per-hour wind gust close to Bodega Bay. Lighter conditions off near Napa and Sonoma as we head all the way into the afternoon and evening hours tonight. Now, heading into the next couple days, our forecast is relatively mild. And we do have drier than normal conditions for us here locally and all throughout the state of California as we head into the next 6 to 10 days. And how that's going to time out for us, really. I mean, we're seeing dry conditions, not a drop of rain in sight. But this is not the worst news ever. I mean, as we take a look at the next 7 days, we're gearing up for some beautiful opportunities to get out there and get some fresh air, whether you're heading up to the Marin Headlands, maybe you want to check out some trails off into the East Bay. Our daytime highs are mild. I mean, we're talking about mid-60s now with sunny skies, upper 50s flirting back and forth as we head into this weekend's forecast. And for Friday and Saturday and a little bit of Sunday too, we're going to see partly cloudy conditions and a little bit of that morning fog kind of creeping its way into the bay and then pulling back to the coast into those afternoon hours. But I mean, even for our friends along the coast, we'll also hold on tight to upper 50s as we head into next week.
Well, the fire danger remains high in parts of Los Angeles with yet another day of high winds and dry conditions, leaving millions of Southern Californians on the edge. The National Weather Service calls it a particularly dangerous situation as large areas of LA face critical fire conditions once again. The Bay Area, or the area burned by the Palisades and Eaton and Hearst fires, covers about 60 square miles. Thankfully, that has not grown much since yesterday. LA officials provided an update this morning on the strong winds.
Critical fire weather conditions will continue through this evening. The anticipated 70-mile-an-hour winds have yet to materialize. However, this could change, and we are still at risk.
The two largest fires, the Palisades and Eaton fires, have destroyed more than 12,000 homes, killing at least 25 people. Neither fire has grown in size since yesterday. Containment is at 19% for Palisades, 45% for the Eaton fire. Charlie DeMar begins our coverage from Los Angeles.
The grueling search and rescue process is already underway here in Altadena. We have already seen crews sifting through the more than 7,000 buildings that were destroyed in the fires.
Dramatic footage shows firefighters conducting water drops in Los Angeles County, trying to stop new sparks from spreading.
2,200 hours working structure defense.
On the ground, fire crews are standing by with wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour expected in some areas.
We're going to create a buffer around every house. We're clearing trees, we can brush anything around those structures.
Since igniting a week ago, the Palisades and Eaton fires have displaced tens of thousands of residents and destroyed more than 12,000 structures, including Daisy Suarez's home.
I have to send my kids to be away from us, and as a parent, it's not what you want to do.
Helena Delu lost her home in Altadena.
We saw that our home was on fire and there was nothing we could do. But, we have our lives, so, that's the most important.
Residents here in Southern California are facing a daunting recovery process as the search for answers continues.
We all lost a lot of memories, a lot of good times. We don't know what we're going to do, where we're going to go.
The mayor of Los Angeles has faced criticism for traveling to Ghana on January 4th after the first weather warning was issued. She returned 24 hours after the Palisades fire began. By then, at least 1,000 structures were already destroyed and more than 70,000 people evacuated.
I mean, everything could be better. There is no question about that.
California's governor says the fires could become the costliest natural disaster in U.S. history.
With strong winds expected to return today, the LA County Health Department has issued an air quality warning for dust and ash. N95 masks are being distributed at all local libraries.
Check out this video from Pedro Rojas's backyard in Pasadena. This is what he believes is the beginning moments of the Eaton fire around an electrical tower last week. Investigators still trying to pinpoint the exact source of the fires in Los Angeles, but Pedro says 30 minutes after he took this video, the fire spread so fast, he and his family had to leave that Eaton Canyon area. In the meantime, federal officials are trying to determine if embers from a fire on New Year's Day may have reignited to spark the Palisades fire. Thousands of people in that area are still waiting to see what, if anything, is left of their homes. Our Kelsey Thord is in the Brentwood area of Los Angeles, where people have been trying to get into that evacuation zone.
I want to go home to get some medicine for my wife, and they don't let me to go even one block up.
Emotions running high in Los Angeles' Brentwood neighborhood, where mandatory evacuation orders remain in place as the area braces for another round of high winds.
They're telling me, go to Zuma Beach and get a pass from them. I don't know where Zuma Beach is. I don't know what to do.
The National Guard and police have been deployed to keep the neighborhood safe, but residents say they're being turned away, not allowed to even run into their own homes to grab medications or important documents.
2 days ago, I was able to get through without any documents. This time, we have to go all the way to Zuma Beach to get a permit, which makes things a lot harder for us.
Dan and Homa Fanny say they're staying at a hotel in another part of town. They understand the fire risk is high for their neighborhood, but they still wish they could get back into their home more easily.
But I have medicine for another 2 days. So hopefully by Thursday it will open. So hopefully we can get to the garage and go to the house.
Sandy Tush told us she too wishes the city could make it easier for them to get back into their homes, if only briefly. She says she just wants to make sure everything in her home is still there and secure. She was hoping to do that because she knows the winds are expected to get worse.
The fire actually right now is controlled more or less on Mandeville Road, but if anything goes past that, then Brentwood is next.
The area still remains without power. Police and National Guard troops are expected to stay as long as the area is evacuated.
And here's a bird's eye view of the firefight, flames barreling toward homes and then water drops from the sky. This footage captured by an outfit from a Canadian firefighter there to join other nations and states in fighting those fires. San Francisco's SPCA teaming up with nonprofits down south to bring up to 50 cats and dogs impacted by the wildfires. This afternoon, they were evacuated from the crowded Downey Animal Care Center. This is in Los Angeles, to find new homes in Northern California. And the destruction left behind in Southern California wildfires had people in the East Bay taking steps to stay prepared. People who went through the Keller fire last year in the Oakland Hills are now trying to plan in case of an emergency. Kara St. Cyr was at a community meeting discussing those next steps.
The fires raging in and around Los Angeles are fueling questions for those in Oakland neighborhoods vulnerable to wildfires.
What if there was a fire coming down?
Delane Sims, who lost her Oakland Hills home to a brush fire in October, is now pushing for her neighbors to prepare for what to do in case of an emergency.
We also need to be proactive. And so to get as much information as possible, to come together and, just sort of be a think tank and support for each other.
Sims' neighborhood is one of the 2 fire districts shuttering in the wake of Oakland's budget deficit. She says it's imperative for her neighbors to understand how to negotiate with insurance companies and organize safe prevention methods if the situation calls for it. During Tuesday night's meeting, both Sims and the Fire Safe Council shared critical tips to help those impacted by the October fire prepare and recover.
And some people can recover from that, but there's a lot of people who can't. It's very difficult to recover emotionally and mentally. It's very difficult. And so that's really important as well.
Rashida Hutchins, one of Sim's neighbors, says the LA fires have played a role in how she plans to protect her family and home from potential disasters. Now that more responsibility may fall on her, she says she's trying to adjust her escape plan as much as she can.
I have a plan in place now, but I didn't really have one before, other than just we have an emergency bag to grab. Now I do have some just like personal sentimental items, letters, some photos that I definitely would be sad about if they were lost. So I've just kind of added the more personal items to the bag.
The meeting emphasized escape routes and safe ways to extinguish fires before they grow to dangerous sizes. But Sims, like most of her neighbors, hopes it never comes to that.
And CBS is partnering with the Red Cross to raise money for those impacted by the Southern California wildfires. You can go to redcross.org/CBS to donate. Call 1-800-RED-CROSS, or you can text Red Cross to 90999 to make a $10 donation. Still ahead on CBS News Bay Area, firefighters helping to save the home of a CBS reporter in Southern California. Here is emotional story and how Bay Area fire crews played a big role. Plus, the shelves are empty as the Fillmore Safeway gets ready to close up shop in San Francisco. The possible impacts of the store's departure and what residents are now demanding next. And TikTok facing an impending ban in the U.S., how local creators are preparing to lose the app and maybe their livelihood.
It's a dry setup for us throughout the next couple days, with daytime highs slowly starting to cool right back down into the upper 50s heading into this weekend and early next week. That's not only noticeable for our friends along our inland areas like the East Bay and the Santa Clara Valley, we're also going to notice it along the coast too. Notice how Friday, Saturday, and Sunday has some cloudy skies in the forecast for us. We're going to notice that widespread throughout the Bay Area with cooler conditions into early next week, and that morning fog kind of waking us up as we dive into this weekend's forecast.
Well, in San Francisco, some residents from the Fillmore district now demanding the Board of Supervisors address the closures of the neighborhood Safeway store. They marched to City Hall yesterday, saying their goal is not to keep Safeway from leaving, rather to add a new grocery store. And they want to be included in those discussions.
We're not playing. We're demanding. We're not requesting. We're demanding. We're not urging you. We're demanding you. And we want all the new supervisors to understand this can be a beautiful relationship or a sour relationship.
The shelves of the store are bare, and newly elected city supervisor Bilal Mahmoud says produce and meat are now gone. But prescription services will continue in the stores until the store's closure on February 7th. Kenny Choi spoke to some customers who say the frenzy to find deals shows the needs of this community.
George Gibbs has shopped for groceries at the Safeway on Webster Street in the Fillmore district for years.
It's convenient because this is the only store that's close.
Most shelves have been cleared out by eager shoppers looking for deals, including the Vietnam veteran who suffered a near life-threatening injury. When the store closes on February 7th, there will be other options for Gibbs who has a car, but the farther distance to the next closest store and price point are concerns for many.
You can go to some place like Molly Stone and it's really expensive.
Other shoppers like Sabine Dabadi, who lives in Oakland, picked up some discounted items.
You drove here, gotcha.
But primarily came to see and hear about how the pending closure will impact everyday residents nearby.
A store of this size and footprint being vacant as well as the parking lot doesn't bode well for the surrounding community and a kind of like active livelihood. It becomes like this desolate ground that feels strange.
Dabadi has worked for nonprofits focused on affordable housing solutions and increasing healthy food access points. She's concerned for everyday residents who will be challenged to make ends meet by added costs, including transportation.
Essentially, the folks who need this place and like can't rely or move farther, or can't go farther, or can't use more money towards cabs and cars or Ubers or Lyfts or what have you.
Safeway has announced it will close this location, citing theft and safety concerns for customers and employees.
I've seen people around the door with stuff and running across the parking lot. I've seen folks walk out in handcuffs for stealing something.
Gibbs is disappointed, but acknowledges why it's closing.
A lot of stuff goes on here. Yeah, that doesn't go on in other Safeways, other stores.
The closure is a loss for Gibbs, but even more so for many of his neighbors who won't have as many options.
Well, Supervisor Mahmoud says he is working with other city hall departments to ensure food access in the short, medium, and in the long term. Well, the Alameda County Board of Supervisors has unanimously approved the A's portion of the Coliseum sale to the African American Sports and Entertainment Group. The supervisors adopted a resolution approving the term sheet. This portion of the sale is valued at $125 million. The negotiations had delayed the developer's purchase of Oakland's share of the site. City leaders say that the money is necessary to help reduce the city's budget deficit. In San Jose, the Santa Clara Valley Water District voted to continue backing Governor Newsom's Delta Water Tunnel project. They approved more than $9 million for planning and permitting. The project aims to divert water to the Central Valley in Southern California, but faces growing costs, now estimated at $20 billion. Despite concerns over environmental impact and risk, Valley Water sees it as crucial for long-term water security. And back to our coverage of the devastating wildfires in Southern California. We're finding some hopeful stories in the middle of all the destruction and loss. Reporters from our sister station, LA, have been covering the stories, some of them worrying about their own homes behind the scenes. Well, reporter Tom Waite was working for hours on end covering the fires while faced with a harsh reality that his family's home had probably been burned down. But thanks to some luck and some incredible hard work and heroism from some Bay Area firefighters, Tom's story had a happy ending.
My cousin Kristen Golden's surprise 50th birthday party just 2 days before Christmas. My aunt, Ann Waite, hosted it at her house on Bollinger in the Palisades, where she's lived since the 1970s. We were all so happy to be together in a space that we've gathered in for decades.
This is the view coming in off Bollinger.
How would it be possible that in just a couple of weeks, my aunt's neighborhood would look like this?
Look at this. Everything is gone.
Complete and utter destruction and devastation. Every house around my aunt's is gone. Only a few houses in the entire area remain intact. On the day the fire started, my aunt wasn't too worried. She snapped a few photos of the smoke from the backyard. But then the evacuation orders came. She complied, leaving with almost nothing. When I arrived at work, I was sent to the Palisades.
There's no visibility.
As day turned to night, the terrifying inferno raged, and it exploded. The Palisades was burning.
There is so much burning right now.
It was like nothing I had ever experienced as a SoCal native or as a reporter covering fires here for more than a decade. The next day, my aunt and my cousins Kristen and Brian were told their childhood home was gone, burned to the ground. But then came news the house might still be standing. I raced over to see what was left. By some miracle, it basically was untouched. The moment was overwhelming.
Oh my God, the house is okay. The house. Okay, everything's fine.
The euphoria of seeing my aunt's house still standing turned to sheer panic because the house next door, just feet from my aunt's, was on fire. But the hero firefighters on scene from LA and San Francisco were battling the flames with everything they had. Still, I figured I only had a few minutes to grab some photos and other valuables. And then a second miracle happened. Two of my coworkers, Rena and Assad, happened to be driving by in the news van and saw me, and they jumped into action, helping me grab whatever valuables we could.
Just ran into my colleague Rena.
LAPD officers on patrol also came upon us and helped us grab whatever we could.
Get a bag here. Thank you so much.
We loaded up my car. Firefighters stayed. They were relentless. They would get the upper hand. My aunt's house was safe, at least for now. Our family is so lucky, but it's hard to feel joy when you look around and realize how many other people lost everything.
And again, CBS News is partnering with the Red Cross to raise money for those impacted by the Southern California wildfires. You can go to redcross.org/CBS to donate, call 1-800-RED-CROSS, or you can text Red Cross to 90999 to make a $10 donation. Well, still ahead, the clock is ticking for TikTok. With just days before a likely ban, we hear from local creators who could lose out on the biggest platform and revenue source.
We're dealing with drier than normal conditions here in the Bay Area and widespread throughout all the state of California. So our rain chances remain low as we head into the next 10 days. And taking a look at the Climate Prediction Center, They're matching that up too with their rainfall outlook. As we wrap up the month of January and head into February, it looks like it is going to be a relatively dry setup. So these dry skies we see behind me, that's the trend for now. With mid to upper 60s in the forecast today down in the Santa Clara Valley, mid to low 60s in the forecast for us off north, closer to the North Bay and all the way off into the East Bay too. That'll be the case today and tomorrow. And then notice how as we head into this weekend, we'll start to see partly cloudy skies. Really, it's just that morning fog kind of rolling into the bay and then creeping out into the afternoon hours. That's what we're going to experience widespread throughout the bay, diving into this weekend and early next week. Now we head into next week's forecast, and yes, we continue to see dry conditions, but also temperatures are going to start cooling down just a little bit more. We're back into where we should be for this time of year, which is mostly upper 50s with these dry conditions all throughout the Bay Area.
Well, in just 4 days, the popular and controversial video app TikTok could disappear. The Supreme Court seems likely to uphold a law that would ban the social media app on January 19th unless it is sold. Today, our Morning Edition anchors asked a CNET reporter what happens next if you have the app and if that ban goes into effect.
This is kind of a developing story because at first we thought if you already had the app on your phone, then it wouldn't magically disappear. You'd still be able to use it, but you wouldn't be able to get updates. So it would eventually become buggy and unusable. But now we're seeing reports that TikTok actually plans to effectively shut it down come January 19th if this ban goes into effect, which means that if you were to open the app, then you would get a pop-up that leads you to a website that explains the shutdown. You would still be able to download your data, but you wouldn't be able to use it. So that's information that's just coming in now from some anonymous sources to the information.
Lawmakers say the ban is an effort to protect consumers and national security, but critics had this to say about the claims against the app.
A lot of critics have said that, there's really no solid backing or evidence for the government's claims against TikTok, that, we haven't really seen it be a national security risk. And, ByteDance has repeatedly said that, those claims are false. So the larger argument here is that there should be kind of something that's applied to more social media platforms that really protects users' data and isn't just targeted towards TikTok.
And our Kevin Coe spoke with Bay Area content creators who have built their own communities on the app, all of which could be gone in days.
Yeah, I come up with ideas throughout the day, and then I just pull them to life.
Steph Anderson, known online as Side of Steph, has more than 36,000 followers on TikTok with 5.3 million likes. It all started when she moved to the Bay Area in 2022 and started making videos about her adventures.
I get DMs every single day being like, I'm scared to move to San Francisco. You make me feel better about it. And I'm like, okay, fabulous. Yeah. Because I wasn't scared to move. I was really excited. But if other people are scared to move, I want to show them that it's the best move of their life.
But one move by the Supreme Court could change everything for Steph and content creators TikTok-wide. On January 19th, the Supreme Court is expected to uphold a law passed with bipartisan support last year requiring TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, to sell the app to a U.S. company. If not, TikTok would be forced to shut down. National security concerns are the primary factor behind the ban.
Congress and the president were concerned that China was accessing information about millions of Americans, tens of millions of Americans, including teenagers.
It's like a double-edged sword because they have a lot of my data. To get payments from TikTok, they have to have a lot of information from me, which was really scary to submit originally. But then I get emails every single day from other companies, insurance companies, everything saying that my data was compromised in a data leak. So I'm like, it's not just TikTok, it's everywhere.
So I'm actually working on a video today. I went and stopped by a brand new spa that opened up in the marina.
Kara, known online as Whimsy Soul, has more than 353,000 followers on TikTok, featuring small businesses across the Bay Area.
I think there's still the stigma that TikTok is a little dancing app for children, but it has evolved to this point where it's where Gen Z and millennials are getting most of our news, and it's how we're connecting with each other.
Kara's created content for 10 years, but she says she finds more personal connections on TikTok. She also says TikTok opened doors that other apps didn't.
Every single day, just kind of like holding your breath and like waiting to see what happens. And I have some brand deals that I'm supposed to post in February. I don't know if I'm going to get to post those or not. I don't know if I get to complete that contract and get that income or not.
Meanwhile, President-elect Donald Trump has asked the justices to put the law on hold until he takes office.
And while people wait on a decision on TikTok, many of them are turning to an alternative called Red Note. It is one of China's most popular apps, and now it became the #1 most downloaded free app in the U.S. Apple Store. Red Note is used by 300 million people. Many users are based in China, where TikTok is not available. Coming up our next half hour in CBS News Bay Area, we continue to track the dangerous fire conditions in Southern California. Plus, how crews are working around the clock to try to allow people to return to their homes. And while one city in Alameda County is cutting its firefighting force, another is expanding. We were there for the grand opening of Fremont's newest station.
It's monumental. It's more weapons for us. It's more tools in the toolbox.
I'm Ryan Yamamoto. This is a Minute. Fire danger remains high today in Southern California due to strong winds and dry conditions. Winds could reach up to 70 miles per hour. 25 people have been killed. More than 12,000 homes have been destroyed since the fires broke out last week. More than 82,000 people remained under evacuation orders. Today, Oakland Police Commission is meeting to discuss the city's vehicle pursuit policy. Currently, Oakland Police can only chase suspects of violent crimes or firearm offenses. The community town hall happens tonight at 6 at the East Bay Church of Religious Science. President Biden will bid farewell to the nation tonight in a primetime farewell address to the nation. Ahead of his address, the president released a statement saying it was a privilege of his life to serve the country for 50 years. He will carry the address live starting at 5 this evening. I'm Ryan Yamamoto, and this is The Minute.
You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
All throughout California, we've been experiencing strong offshore winds at times throughout this week, of course, impacting Southern California with those strong Santa Ana winds, where they're still under red flag warnings throughout this afternoon. Now, back here locally, we've also been experiencing these offshore winds, just significantly lighter. I mean, at max today, we're getting anywhere up to around 15-mile-per-hour wind gusts close to Bodega Bay. Lighter conditions off near Napa and Sonoma as we head all the way into the afternoon and evening hours tonight. Now, heading into the next couple days, our forecast is relatively mild. And we do have drier than normal conditions for us here locally and all throughout the state of California as we head into the next 6 to 10 days. And how that's going to time out for us, really. I mean, we're seeing dry conditions, not a drop of rain in sight. But this is not the worst news ever. I mean, as we take a look at the next 7 days, we're gearing up for some beautiful opportunities to get out there and get some fresh air, whether you're hitting up to the Marin Headlands, maybe you want to check out some trails off into the East Bay. Our daytime highs are mild. I mean, we're talking about mid-60s now with sunny skies, upper 50s flirting back and forth as we head into this weekend's forecast. And for Friday and Saturday and a little bit of Sunday too, we're going to see partly cloudy conditions and a little bit of that morning fog kind of creeping its way into the bay and then pulling back to the coast into those afternoon hours. But I mean, even for our friends along the coast, we'll also hold on tight to upper 50s as we head into next week.
Well, firefighters in Southern California trying to contain the wildfires in Los Angeles as dangerous fire conditions threaten to make things worse. The National Weather Service calls it a particularly dangerous situation as a red flag fire weather warning is back in effect for large areas of LA. The area burned by the Palisades, Eaton, and Hearst fires covers about 60 square miles, but has not grown much since yesterday. The two largest fires, the Palisade and Eaton fires, have destroyed more than 12,000 homes, killing at least 25 people. Neither fire has grown in size since yesterday. More than 80,000 people remain under evacuation orders. Another 90,000 are under evacuation warnings. Fire crews are gaining ground on the Eaton fire, reaching 45% containment, but they are standing by for any fires driven by the wind. Amanda Starantino is in Altadena.
Thousands of people still not able to come home. And the big question is, when can they come home? But unfortunately, a lot of their properties look like this. This is what they're going to be coming home to. This is Ventura Street and Glen Rose in the Altadena community. Just one of the many just devastated because of those fires that came through last week. We're right across from a park as well. A beautiful view here. But unfortunately, it's going to be tough for these neighbors to come back and see what their communities are looking like. But we want to give you a look at what is happening here overnight. Utility crews not stopping the work when the sun goes down. We were here since 2 a.m. this morning, and these guys have been digging holes, cutting these lines, trying to get these gas lines cut off so it can be safe for people to come back. So they're having to do this to every single property. So you can only imagine how difficult it is. I talked to one of the utility workers, and they said it's like looking for and dealing with a bowl of metal spaghetti to find the right line in there. But it's just really dirty here, really tough to get through these streets still. So a lot of work has to be done before people come back. I talked to a public information officer with the fire department here about what needs to be done. Take a listen.
We are doing what typically would take weeks to do in a matter of days, to be honest with you. There's a huge amount of resources that are dedicated to getting people back into their homes just as fast as we can. And I don't guarantee much, but I guarantee you there's 3,300 people assigned to this incident, and they're all working their tails off to do just that.
So a lot of steps need to be taken. The fire department is going all around to every single property to make sure there's nothing smoldering or any hot spots, because that still could be an issue and cause further problems down the road. So that's one thing they're doing. Also, the difficult job of search and rescue. There's 400 people assigned to that team. They are strategically going around these properties, making sure there's no bodies left there. Unfortunately, it's very morbid and difficult, but it is something that has to be done when it comes to this, because this is how they're finding people and what they're having to go through. So it is very tricky as these properties are still dangerous to sift through. Also, if you just look at the ground here, I mean, this one's actually not too bad, but streets are just lined with burned out cars. There's also power lines still on the roads. There's also trees that are down as well that they have to get out of the way to make sure people can actually navigate these roads safely. So obviously a lot of steps need to be done here. A lot of people still don't know if their properties are still standing. Even we're trying to find addresses for people and give them those answers, because people aren't able to come back just yet. Roads still blocked all the way around. You need credentials to get through here, with the National Guard, CHP, and the Sheriff's Department making sure no one gets in here that shouldn't be here. So still a tough situation here in Altadena. A lot of people waiting for the answers, and a lot of people wondering still if their home is still standing.
Some good news in the firefight. An aircraft on loan from Canada called the Super Scooper has been cleared to help fight the Palisades fire. It was damaged on Thursday when an illegal civilian drone hit it. Officials said the plane has been repaired and now set to fly. Bay Area celebrity chef Tyler Florence is making sure first responders on the front lines are fed as they battle the wildfires in Los Angeles. He teamed up with the nonprofit World Central Kitchen. They have 7 food trucks and also deliver food to crews in the mountains.
Also gone way up into the hills, into the Palisades to go find fire companies that have been sleeping in their trucks for the last 2 days to make sure they get food as well. So it's been a very, very satisfying day. Fed a lot of people.
Well, Tyler Florence owns several restaurants in San Francisco. It's also not the first time he has helped out with fire relief efforts. In 2017, he held a benefit dinner to raise money for victims of the wine country wildfires. While the LA wildfires have placed more scrutiny on cuts to public safety here in California, Fremont's fire department is celebrating a boost to its resources. They say it will keep their community well positioned in case of emergency. Our Lauren Toms reports.
I heard Truck 56 go available on the radio, and we got to a point to where we didn't know if this was ever going to happen. And so when I heard that on the radio, it became really real for me.
Captain Ahmad was just a rookie when the seeds were planted to add another fire company in Fremont. As he worked his way up the ranks and up ladders, he says he was relentless in his calls for extra resources.
You know, when you've worked in the city almost 20 years, and there's an addition of a new piece of equipment that you know is going to be beneficial to the community, but also your members that are out there doing the job. I mean, it's monumental. It's more weapons for us. It's more tools in the toolbox.
The need was clear back in 2004 when just 3 fire stations handled half of Fremont's emergencies. Since then, the city has seen a 13% population bump according to census data, one of the highest in the Bay Area.
And all we can do is just ask. You know, ask for resources, ask for equipment. Even with as much as you try to prepare for it, you still need the apparatus and the members that are inside of it to respond to the call and do the job that we were sworn to do.
The new company adds an extra fire engine and 9 additional firefighters to Station 6. It's a bright light at a time when other cities are making tough choices to cut fire resources amid budget troubles, even though fire season is now year-round in California. Just up the road in Oakland, last week, city officials announced the temporary closure of 2 of its stations. But in Fremont, Fire Chief Zoraida Diaz knows that issue all too well.
Because at the end of the day, the people who are impacted are those that we're here to serve.
A former Oakland firefighter herself, she's pushing for a proactive approach to public safety, gearing up her crews to be ready before disaster strikes.
When you have to do more with less, it's not giving our members an opportunity, the members of the fire service, an opportunity to really recover. And so having an organization that allows us to hire, recruit, and hire and promote on a timely basis is so rewarding.
And for Captain Ahmad, he hopes the community will see the impact of the new company, not just today, but for generations to come.
Up next, providing hope through housing, how a Bay Area nonprofit is helping people turn their lives around and how they are paying it forward.
nice setup for us throughout the next couple days, with daytime highs slowly starting to cool right back down into the upper 50s heading into this weekend and early next week. That's not only noticeable for our friends along our inland areas like the East Bay and the Santa Clara Valley, we're also going to notice it along the coast too. Notice how Friday, Saturday, and Sunday has some cloudy skies in the forecast for us. We're going to notice that widespread throughout the Bay Area with cooler conditions into early next week, and that morning fog kind of waking us up as we dive into this weekend's forecast.
Well, from sleeping in cars to bouncing around hotels, a woman says she managed to overcome addiction with the help of an organization which offered vital services. Justine Rawlings is sharing her story in hopes of gathering support for nonprofits. Motherhood is what convinced Justine to get clean, and she wants others to know the impact one organization had on her life. Veronica Macias has her story.
For Justine Rawlings, coming back to this low-income housing complex brings a wave of emotions.
It definitely brings back memories. You know, both of my children were raised here.
She says without the support, services, and community help received here, she's not sure where she would be. The complex is run by Hope Solutions in Contra Costa. The organization's goal is to provide housing first to help those living in poverty work their way out. Rawlings is a success story for the program.
I know that I would not be here today if it weren't for all the support, and that's why I get so emotional.
She lived here while earning her master's degree at UC Berkeley in social welfare. Now, as a social worker, she sees firsthand how the housing crisis is part of the root cause of a systemic system of poverty.
We're seeing families who work, who can't afford the cost of living, and wages remain stagnant, don't have education to have any kind of job beyond a minimum wage job. We're seeing transitional age youth with limited support who are facing housing insecurities, coming out of the foster care system. We're seeing senior citizens, people that are over 65 with comorbidities and health issues.
Rawlings shares her journey with the intent of shedding light on the services that she considers to be a lifeline for those struggling.
It's impossible to prioritize your mental health, your sobriety, your physical health, your job. It's really hard to have a good quality of life when you don't have the basic foundation of housing.
SB 4, which was passed in 2023, allows California churches and colleges to develop affordable housing on their property and do it quickly.
It's a way to do active mission work in our neighborhoods and our local.
Officials at Grace Presbyterian Church in Walnut Creek have taken advantage, installing these mini homes in what they call Hope Village and making them available to seniors. The objective is to get vulnerable adults off the streets and provide services through Hope Solutions.
A couple years ago, there was some pushback from neighbors across the street and in the neighborhood, concerns that it would be there would be tents, that there would be a homeless shelter, there would be people hanging around, it would increase crime. And as they learned more about what the project is really about, which is providing affordable housing for folks who don't have that opportunity, I think they began to understand what we were trying to do.
A study by Berkeley's Turner Center found California has 171 potentially developable acres owned by faith-based organizations or nonprofit colleges, which is nearly 5 times the size of the city of Oakland, open to projects like the Hope Village. Rawlings hopes others believe in the mission. As someone who has reaped the benefits firsthand, she's now looking for ways to give back.
Well, Hope Solutions is already working on 6 other locations, one which is aimed at helping youth specifically. Coming up, autonomous cars aren't just a game changer for the rideshare industry. They're also giving the visually impaired more freedom to live their lives.
I struggle getting around, and I don't have to worry about the awkwardness of explaining my blindness to the driver.
drier than normal conditions here in the Bay Area and widespread throughout all the state of California. So our rain chances remain low as we head into the next 10 days. And taking a look at the Climate Prediction Center, they're matching that up too with their rainfall outlook. As we wrap up the month of January and head into February, it looks like it is going to be a relatively dry setup. So these dry skies we see behind me, that's the trend for now. With mid to upper 60s in the forecast today down in the Santa Clara Valley, mid to low 60s in the forecast for us off north, closer to the North Bay and all the way off into the East Bay too. That'll be the case today and tomorrow. And then notice how as we head into this weekend, we'll start to see partly cloudy skies. Really, it's just that morning fog kind of rolling into the bay and then creeping out into the afternoon hours. That's what we're going to experience widespread throughout the bay, diving into this weekend and early next week. Now we head into next week's forecast, and yes, we continue to see dry conditions, but also temperatures are going to start cooling down just a little bit more. We're back into where we should be for this time of year, which is mostly upper 50s with these dry conditions all throughout the Bay Area.
Well, for the blind and visually impaired, communicating can be a challenge. Public transportation can help, and regular ride shares offer some assistance. But now, more and more people are choosing Waymo and other autonomous vehicles. They say they offer more accessibility on their own terms. Our Amanda Harry spoke with a visually impaired man who says Waymo is changing the game.
It's a honk horn feature, so I can confirm which car is mine as I walk up.
A sound that signifies the ability for James Gump to travel independently. Gump has been considered blind his whole life. His ability to see is impacted by light. While he has some usable vision, he uses a cane to help navigate the world, and he can't drive.
Growing up in the peninsula and being in a culture where everyone drives, I struggled getting around.
For most of his life, he's used public transportation, but that has its own obstacles.
If I were to go do a couple errands, it would take multiple hours in bus transfers and a lot more time.
Now, autonomous vehicle companies like Waymo are making it easier for Gump and other people with vision loss to get around without being reliant on anyone else.
So I just start driving.
Before driverless vehicles, Gump would use ride-sharing services like Lyft and Uber, but he experienced ride denial because of his service animal. It would sometimes be difficult to locate his ride, and other times he felt uncomfortable or unsafe.
I don't have to worry about the awkwardness of explaining my blindness to the driver and having them underhelp or overhelp. I've had situations where drivers will follow me to my door after I've asked them not to. And that's a little disconcerting and something you wouldn't do for your normal customer.
Rachel Kamen with Waymo says they want to make transportation for anyone and everyone.
The core of our mission is making transportation safe and accessible. To be able to independently hail a ride.
Waymo has worked with visually impaired nonprofits like Lighthouse in San Francisco to ensure they offer features like screen readers and audio directions. They hope to offer more features in the future.
We're always growing, we're always evolving, and we're never done, right? We're always working with the community, we're always learning more.
Almost at your drop-off. For many people, not having a human driver can be scary. While Gump understands people's concerns, he doesn't share them.
I think it has a lot to do with the ability to give up control over the driving situation. And in the blind world, we've had to give up that control a long time ago and rely on a lot of other drivers. So it's kind of a natural transition to not having a driver for us.
Without a driver, Gump feels more in control. He's able to get to his destination by car without another person for the first time.
A lot more freedoms through the travel that Waymo allows us to do.
Currently, Waymo has a limited service area, but people in the blind community, like Gump, are hopeful it will expand. For now, the future is bright when it comes to more accessible transportation.
Bye, Waymo.
Well, thanks for streaming CBS News Bay Area. I'm Ryan Yamamoto. We'll be right back with your first alert weather forecast and a look at your top stories. Yamamoto, this is the Minute. In the Middle East, a ceasefire deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas. Sources tell CBS News it would stop fighting in Gaza for more than 40 days, release dozens of hostages and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Fire danger remains high today in Southern California due to strong winds and dry conditions. Winds could reach up to 70 miles per hour. 25 people have been killed and more than 12,000 homes have been destroyed since the fires broke out last week. More than 82,000 people remain under evacuation orders. And in San Francisco, Mayor Daniel Lurie will meet with city supervisors and public safety leaders today to discuss the city's efforts to combat the fentanyl crisis. That meeting follows Lurie's introduction of the fentanyl state of emergency ordinance aimed at unlocking resources to tackle the issue. The Bay Area's only primetime newscast, 8-9 p.m. on Pix Plus, 44 Cable 12.
You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
All throughout California, we've been experiencing strong offshore winds at times throughout this week, of course, impacting Southern California with those strong Santa Ana winds, where they're still under red flag warnings throughout this afternoon. Now, back here locally, we've also been experiencing these offshore winds, just significantly lighter. I mean, at max today, we're getting anywhere up to around 15-mile-per-hour wind gusts close to Bodega Bay. Lighter conditions off near Napa and Sonoma as we head all the way into the afternoon and evening hours tonight. Now, heading into the next couple days, our forecast is relatively mild. And we do have drier than normal conditions for us here locally and all throughout the state of California as we head into the next 6 to 10 days. And how that's going to time out for us, really. I mean, we're seeing dry conditions, not a drop of rain in sight. But this is not the worst news ever. I mean, as we take a look at the next 7 days, we're gearing up for some beautiful opportunities to get out there and get some fresh air, whether you're hitting up to the Marin Headlands, maybe you want to check out some trails off into the East Bay. Our daytime highs are mild. I mean, we're talking about mid-60s now with sunny skies, upper 50s flirting back and forth as we head into this weekend's forecast. And for Friday and Saturday and a little bit of Sunday too, we're going to see partly cloudy conditions and a little bit of that morning fog kind of creeping its way into the bay and then pulling back to the coast into those afternoon hours. But I mean, even for our friends along the coast, we'll also hold on tight to upper 50s as we head into next week.
Well, the fire danger remains high in parts of Los Angeles with yet another day of high winds and dry conditions, leaving millions of Southern Californians on the edge. The National Weather Service calls it a particularly dangerous situation as large areas of LA face critical fire conditions once again. The Bay Area, or the area burned by the Palisades and Eaton and Hearst fires, covers about 60 square miles. Thankfully, that has not grown much since yesterday. LA officials provided an update this morning on the strong winds.
Critical fire weather conditions will continue through this evening. The anticipated 70-mile-an-hour winds have yet to materialize. However, this could change, and we are still at risk.
The two largest fires, the Palisades and Eaton fires, have destroyed more than 12,000 homes, killing at least 25 people. Neither fire has grown in size since yesterday. Containment is at 19% for Palisades, 45% for the Eaton fire. Charlie DeMar begins our coverage from Los Angeles.
The grueling search and rescue process is already underway here in Altadena. We have already seen crews sifting through the more than 7,000 buildings that were destroyed in the fires.
Dramatic footage shows firefighters conducting water drops in Los Angeles County, trying to stop new sparks from spreading.
2,200 hours working structure defense.
On the ground, fire crews are standing by with wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour expected in some areas.
We're going to create a buffer around every house. We're clearing trees, we can brush anything around those structures.
Since igniting a week ago, the Palisades and Eaton fires have displaced tens of thousands of residents and destroyed more than 12,000 structures, including Daisy Suarez's home.
I have to send my kids to be away from us, you know, and as a parent, it's not what you want to do.
Helena Delu lost her home in Altadena.
Working with the Biden administration on the contours of a deal to ensure that
stand by for us, please. A special report is imminent as we hear.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Nora O'Donnell in Washington, and we are coming on the air as President Biden is about to speak to the nation and the world about a ceasefire and hostage deal between Israel and Hamas. And here's what CBS has learned about the agreement. It includes the release of Israeli hostages and American hostages in waves and requires additional aid, humanitarian aid, to flow into Gaza. This is a complex deal that comes after 15 months after Hamas launched a terror attack in Israel, killing 1,200 and taking hundreds hostage. You can see now the President of the United States. Let's listen.
It's a very good afternoon, because at long last, I can announce a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas. For more than 15 months of conflict, it began with Hezbollah's brutal massacre on October the 7th. More than 15 months of terror for the hostages, their families, the Israeli people. More than 15 months of suffering by the innocent people of Gaza. Fighting in Gaza will stop, and soon the hostages will return home to their families. The elements of this deal were what I laid out in detail this past May, which was embraced by countries around the world and endorsed overwhelmingly by the UN Security Council. The deal is structured in 3 phases. Phase 1 will last 6 weeks. It includes a full and complete ceasefire, withdrawal of Israeli forces from all the populated areas of Gaza, and the release of a number of hostages held by Hamas, including women and elderly and the wounded. And I'm proud to say Americans will be part of that hostage release in Phase 1 as well. And the Vice President and I cannot wait to welcome them home. In exchange, Israel released hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. And during Phase 1, the Palestinians can also return to their neighborhoods in all the areas of Gaza. And the surge of humanitarian assistance into Gaza will begin. And the innocent people can have a greater access to these vital supplies. You know, during the next 6 weeks, Israel will negotiate the necessary arrangements to get Phase 2, which is a permanent end of the war. Let me say it again, a permanent end of the war. There are a number of details to negotiate to move from Phase 1 to Phase 2, but the plan says if negotiations take longer than 6 weeks, the ceasefire will continue as long as the negotiations continue. I've spoken to the Emir of Kuwait and the President of Egypt, and we have pledged to make sure the negotiations will keep moving forward for as long as it takes. Then, when Phase 2 begins, there will be an exchange for release of the remaining living hostages, including male soldiers, and all remaining Israeli forces will be withdrawn from Gaza, and the temporary ceasefire will become permanent. And finally, Phase 3, any final remains of hostages who have been killed will be returned to their families, and a major reconstruction plan for Gaza will begin. This is the ceasefire agreement I introduced last spring. Today, Hamas and Israel have agreed to that ceasefire agreement and the whole ending the war. You know, those of you who have followed the negotiations can attest, the road to this deal has not been easy. I've worked in foreign policy for decades. This is one of the toughest negotiations I've ever experienced. And we reached this point because of the pressure that Israel built on Hamas, backed by the United States. Hamas's longtime leader, Sinwar, was killed. Hamas's strongest supporter, Iran, launched attacks on Israel. And those attacks failed after my administration organized a coalition of nations to stop them. And after I ordered the U.S. ships and planes to come to Israel's defense, we also shaped Israel's strong and calibrated response, destroying Iran's air defenses, but avoiding an escalatory cycle of an all-out war. The United States also organized a coalition of 20 countries to stand up to attacks by the Houthis, including their missile attacks in Israel. Then, Hezbollah, another of Hamas's strongest backers, was significantly weakened on the battlefield. and its leadership was destroyed. With our support, Israel negotiated a ceasefire with them, and after that, Lebanon finally elected a new president who's not beholden to Hezbollah, and he can begin a new chapter for the Lebanese people. All told, these developments in the region, which the United States helped to shape, changed the equation. And so now, the terror network that once protected and sustained Hamas is far weaker. Iran is weaker. Iran is weaker than it's been in decades. Hezbollah is badly degraded. And after more than 15 months of war, Hamas's senior leaders are dead. Thousands of Hamas fighters are dead. And the military formations have been destroyed. With nowhere to turn, Hamas finally agreed to releasing hostages. You know, there was no other way for this war to end than with a hostage deal. And I'm deeply satisfied this day has finally come, for the sake of the people of Israel and the families waiting in agony, and for the sake of the innocent people in Gaza who suffered unimaginable devastation because of the war. The Palestinian people have gone through hell. Too many innocent people have died. Too many communities have been destroyed. And this deal, the people of Gaza can finally recover and rebuild. They can look to a future without Hamas in power. You know, the Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers. Many peacemakers helped make this deal happen, including